The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. If it makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say, what the fuck, you're going to hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. First and foremost, happy Independence Day to everybody who is in the U.S. Yeah, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Because I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here. But also, thank you to everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of fun stuff. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all socials. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. And you can find all that and much, much more at my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of your screen if you're watching the video. So, like I said, it is Independence Day in the U.S., also known as the 4th of July. Well, it's 4th of July as I'm recording this. This won't drop until the 5th, but anyway, you get the point. So, hope everybody has or had a safe and happy 4th of July, but like I said, I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a lot of debate, not even debate, there's a lot of fighting going on right now about if we should even be celebrating Independence Day this particular year. But like I said, I'm not going to get into that. The topic today is independence in general, not strictly talking about the United States. I'm not even strictly talking about nations. I'm talking about anything, individuals, whatever. Is anyone or anything truly independent? The short answer, no. No, nobody's independent. No nation is truly independent. Independence is an illusion. I think people are confusing the terms independence with being self-sufficient or self-governing in the case of a nation. Because that's how the independence of the United States came along in 1776. We declared our independence from the British Crown, meaning we were choosing to govern ourselves and no longer be a part of Great Britain. So in that sense, it's independence as far as governing ourselves. But again, is anyone or anything truly independent in the strictest, purest sense of the word? No. Everyone, everything, every individual person, every family, every company, every government, be it state, local, federal, every nation is dependent on something outside of itself. That's just the way the world works. If we're talking on an individual level, yeah, you can be independently wealthy and you don't have to work and things like that, and you're retired. You're still dependent on things for survival. You're dependent on food. You're dependent on water. You're dependent on having a roof over your head. And now there are people that are going to say, "Oh, what if somebody's totally self-sufficient and they can build their own cabin out in the woods and hunt and grow their own food and blah blah blah." First of all, who the fuck lives like that? Other than lunatic militant separatists who want to be off the grid and away from society. Nobody lives like that. I mean, we're heading in that direction where we're probably going to have to, but in the current state of things, nobody fucking lives like that. But even as a nation, and I'm not just talking about the United States, you're dependent on other countries, whether it's importing oil from the Middle East or importing food from wherever, China, Japan, or importing electronics, technology, things like that. You're dependent. You are not fully 100% independent. Even North Korea, the most isolationist country on planet Earth, still depend they import goods from India and China and Russia. So even they, keeping themselves separate from the rest of the world, are not completely independent. For a nation to be independent, they would have to not depend on any other country for anything. Nothing. Zero imports. That would be independence on a national level. So countries are independent in the sense that they are self-governing. They're not a territory of another government. A good example is like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. Puerto Rico is not an independent nation. It's a United States territory. They're under the jurisdiction of the United States, just as the original 13 colonies were under the jurisdiction of the British Crown. So when the U.S. broke away, they became self-governing. But like I said, in the strictest sense of the word independence, it doesn't exist. It is an illusion. I don't care how well off you are. You depend on other people. You depend on, like I said, you still have to go out and buy food. You're dependent on that. Somebody who is like ultra rich and has like maids and butlers and cooks and shit like that, you're dependent on those people. 'Cause- Because I'm willing to bet at least 90% of people that are in that at that level of wealth wouldn't have any clue how to do any of that stuff for themselves. So they're 100% dependent on the people that work for them. Just like a company. Company I work for, the company you work for, what any company around the world is dependent on its employees. Those employees go away, that company's fucked. And the same thing with a nation. Again, you're dependent on your citizens to pay taxes, to fund all the government programs and everything, and that goes for federal, state, local, whatever. They're dependent on the people that live there. So I think people just throw around the word independence and don't 100% know what it means, because nobody is truly independent. Like I said, I think the term self-sufficient is a little more accurate because I'll use myself as an example. I'm self-sufficient. I work, I earn money, I buy groceries. I do all these things for myself. I don't rely on help from other people or from government programs. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking people that do need that kind of help. That that's just life. People need help sometimes. I've been in a situation years ago where, yeah, I relied on other people for a lot. Now I'm at a point in my life. I have a good job. I make good money. I take care of myself, my family, but I'm not independent. I'm dependent on my job. That job goes away, then I'm basically screwed. I'm dependent on being able to buy food. I'm dependent on having clean water, meaning I'm dependent on all those people working in the grocery store and all those people working in the uh in the food industry, packing that food and shipping it to the store where I can go and buy it. Everything depends on something. You can be self-sufficient, but No one and nothing will ever be truly 100% independent. It doesn't exist. It is an illusion. Kind of like kind of like rights. I've talked about this before. Rights are an illusion. You don't have any rights. You have temporary privileges and conditional privileges. They're conditional based on who you are, where you are, who's around you, and who's in charge as to whether you can or can't exercise those rights and to what extent you can exercise them. It's all totally conditional. S Same thing with being independent. It is an illusion. No one and nothing is truly independent. I use the example of North Korea, completely isolated from the rest of the world, but they still depend on other nations for, I'm not sure what they import, but you can look it up. North Korea does have trade deals with India and China and Russia, and I'm sure other countries. I know they don't have any with the United States, but they do they do import goods. So even the most isolationist nation in the world is not independent. Now, when going back to when the US declared independence from Great Britain, like I said, they're declaring that we're going to govern ourselves. We're no longer going to be a part of your government. We're going to create our own. We are going to govern ourselves independent of any other nation. So separate from any other nation is the context in which the Declaration of Independence was created and signed, and the reason why we have the holiday that we're having right now. But and again, this is not a knock against any country or any person or anything like that. This is more so talking about language once again, because people love to scream about independence, but everybody's dependent on something and someone for survival. I mean, unless you are that person that's building your own cabin in the woods and hunting and fishing and growing your own food with no electricity and or maybe you've got solar panels or whatever, completely off the grid and disconnected from society, and then you could say you're completely independent because you don't rely on anyone for anything, but you're still relying on the fact that there's going to be animals for you to hunt and fish for you to take out of the lake and your ability to grow food. So you're still reliant on that kind of stuff. But as far as relying on other people or the government or anything like that, that you could say you're independent. That in that one circumstance, that's pretty much it. And like I said, who the fuck lives like that? Nobody. Maybe the Unabomber, but that's just not a thing on any type of significant scale. Now, like I said, we may be heading in that direction where it's going to become a necessity, but I'm not getting into all that. But yeah, again, this is more so about the language that we use. I'm not knocking Independence Day. I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate Independence Day. Absolutely go out, light some fireworks, do whatever, just don't hurt yourself or anybody else. Go out and celebrate Independence Day or go out and protest. I know a lot of people are doing that as well, as is their right. I don't blame them. There's a lot to protest going on right now. Or stay home and do nothing. I mean, for most people, it's a paid day off from work. I mean, unless you work in like retail or food service or something like that, then God bless you. I hope you have an easy, smooth day at work, and you get tons of tips and go home happy this evening if you do have to work today. But Yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap it up. I mean, like I said, this episode was more so about the word independent and it being overused and just people not really thinking about what it truly means because no one is independent. Not me, not you, not the city I live in, not the state I live in, not the country we live in, nor any country around the world. Everyone depends on someone or something for part of their survival. It's just a fact of life. It's a fact of being human. And I think if people would remember that and acknowledge it, maybe they'd start being a little nicer to each other. Maybe. I wouldn't count on it, but maybe. If you realize you're dependent on somebody for something, whether you you're dependent on your job, which everybody is, or you're dependent on being able to go to the grocery store to get food, which everybody is. Everybody's dependent on something or someone. So maybe, just maybe, we should be a little bit nicer to each other. Just simply because of that fact. We're all human beings and we all depend on something and someone. It's just the way it is. It's just the way life works. So I think that's going to wrap up this episode on independence for this week. But again, hope everybody has a great 4th of July, whether you're celebrating, protesting, vegging out in front of the TV, working, whatever you might be doing today. I hope you have an awesome day and an awesome weekend. And with that, I just want to say if anyone has any issue with anything that I have said here today, ask yourself one question. Do I look like I give a fuck?
Retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we